So it won't be a great secret to you that these are paid sponsorships. I have no merit to be here. I'm the YouTube ad before your memes of kittens and puppies. So these events, I'm really grateful that we get a chance to connect. And I think we all tend to have our own interests when we come here. And sometimes it can clog our vision. And I'm so grateful for the conference and organizing committee that they've invited Hélène Campbell to close this event, because I have had the chance to meet her. She is so incredible. I am so humbled to be able to introduce her. And I think she will help bring back what we're all here for to this event. I think the science and art of medicine brings daily miracles. Sometimes we get complacent. We get complacent about the fragility of life, and we get complacent about how extraordinary the work that so many of you do, and so many clinicians do, and so many patients that go through these hardships learn. So I didn't suspect, like 3 weeks ago, thanks to another event organized by Digital Health Canada, we got to have a site visit at University Health Network. And I took videos. We were all fascinated by to explore how AI was having an impact in a hospital. And we got to witness an ex vivo lungs being kept longer and with better predictive capabilities, thanks to artificial intelligence. And little did I know that 3 weeks later, I would meet a miracle on 2 legs, that she calls herself the French-Canadian double-double, for having had 2 double lung transplants in 2017 and 2012. And since then has been a huge advocate for organ transplant. And so I'm so proud to introduce Hélène Campbell to you.
Thank you. Oh. Hello, everybody. It's my first time talking with a leash, so this might be a little interesting. But I'm really honored to be here. I'm very, very humbled to be here as well amongst all of you. And some of you have heard my story before, but here we go again. I think we really need to take a minute, though, to celebrate the wins and celebrate the incredible work that's been happening. We survived a pandemic. We're strong, we're resilient, we aren't perfect, but we're striving to do better. And I think we need to give ourselves a round of applause and congratulate ourselves for the incredible work we've done. Digital health, this year is a product of digital health, and I wouldn't be able to be here if it weren't for the innovation and technology. Because before I used to have these tanks, and you can't bring those on planes, and it's really hard to organize getting tanks delivered somewhere. So this puppy, I call it my R202. Sometimes it gets a little heavy, and I get my mom to carry it, and I call her my R202 go-to, which is great. But this has given me a new lease on life, I could say. It's incredible that a couple weeks ago, I was in Newfoundland, and here I am in Vancouver, coast to coast. Never thought that I would make it this far with the lungs that I have now and the story that I have. So I'm going to jump in, take a minute to get a glass of water. 1 sec, I'm so sorry. Sorry, guys. I prepped my water bottle earlier and I completely forgot to bring it. It's the meds. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So I'm going to tell you guys my story. When I was in Newfoundland, there was an expression that they were saying, "Who knit ya? Who knit ya, Hélène? Who put you together? Who are your parents?" These folks knit me, my mom and dad, Manon and Alan. My dad, Alan, was a teacher, and my mom, Manon, was a nurse. They're both retired now, but growing up in a home with parents who were always looking to serve others, it was just ingrained in us to think of others first, to do what we thought would be best for other people. And I grew up, I'm very fortunate that I grew up in the house that I did. I have 3 siblings, a brother, David, a sister, Elizabeth, and my older sister, Mary. But this story is all about me. So here goes. I came into this world on a Friday because I knew what was good. I came in on April 18th. I am an Aries, for those wondering, and just had all the energy in the world. My mom said that we were really wild sisters growing up. My sister now has a son, and my nephew is 3 years old and full of beans. And now I see a child, I'm like, Mom, I don't know how you did it. We were crazy, full of beans, full of life. If we weren't volunteering at church, we were working. I was working at Dairy Queen. I was working at the Ottawa Hospital in nephrology. And if I wasn't at work, I was busy socializing with my friends. And there was something I always loved about socializing. It was connecting with people and hearing people's stories. And I loved that aspect of life. And I thought, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with this opportunity that we're given? And I loved the idea of capturing stories and being behind a camera. And so Steven Spielberg was a big inspiration for me. And I realize now that it's not so much film that I was interested in, but it was more so connecting with people, hearing their stories, and just learning and picking up nuggets of information and just golden nuggets along the way. And I realize now that the impact that stories can have on our lives. When I was working at the Ottawa Hospital, I worked with my friend Marie-Ève Choquette, and she was and is probably one of the greatest writers I know. And at the time, Twitter wasn't really a thing yet. And she sat me down and she said, Hélène, you have to get on Twitter. And I was like, what is that? And she explained to me what Twitter was. Now we all know. But at the time, the concept of that to me seemed a little crazy. I was like, what do I have to say? And she was explaining, no, if someone who's in a position of power tweets something, it can really make a big impact. And I didn't understand how it worked. And then she explained the whole idea of a hashtag and how you can get things trending and how it can make a big difference. And I never thought that Twitter would be one of the biggest tools to help me along the way with my journey. When we were in Spain, gallivanting about, I did this weird dance move everywhere. And I'm going to show you a little snippet of it. I'm not proud. My dance moves have improved since then. But I absolutely loved traveling in Spain. We had so much fun. And as a young, healthy 20-year-old girl living her best life in Barcelona, I was like, wow, the world is like my oyster. Is that the expression? And I am excited to experience all the things. Jumped on the back of a motorcycle. My mom didn't know. And I really caught the travel bug. When I came home from that trip, I was like, okay, I want to travel. I want to meet people. I want to do film. I had this idea of what my life was going to look like. And a couple days after being home, I bought a plane ticket with the genius idea of backpacking from England all the way up to Scotland. When I landed in England, I realized that that was going to be impossible because my lung function wasn't great at the time. I was misdiagnosed with asthma when I was younger. My older sister, Mary, presented herself to our family doctor with symptoms, and she got tested, and it came back as asthma. So when I presented myself with those symptoms, it just made sense that it would probably be asthma as well. I was never a compliant patient, and I know now how compliance is very important. But at the time, I was invincible, I was young, puffers weren't gonna help me. And you know what, when I was on this trip in Great Britain, I realized, okay, maybe I should start taking my puffers because there's something off here. And I had this little cough that was like a And because I was so busy all the time, either working, socializing, blizzing at Dairy Queen, like all that stuff, I was almost never home. If I had been home, my mom would have definitely been on me to go get things checked out. But because I was not home, things went unnoticed for much longer than they probably would have if I had been around. When I was on the train from London going up to Inverness, I sat beside a respirologist, and I always imitate this with a bit of an accent. And he was like, "You got a cough?" And I was like, yeah, I have asthma. And he's like, "That's not asthma. You need a chest X-ray." And I had this great conversation, and he was telling me, and all I could hear is, "You need a chest X-ray." And the thing is, my mom had told me that, but moms don't know. Nurse moms don't know. So I finally got up to Inverness to meet my friend Danica, and we were chatting, and I told her about the chest X-ray, and she was like, maybe he's onto something, and maybe your mom is onto something. I don't know. And what's crazy is that moments later, I took this photo because we were like, oh my gosh, that looks like lungs. It's a sign. Sometimes things happen, and there are these signs that just kind of smack you in the face, and in hindsight is always 2020. But at the time, I had no idea what I was in for. When I came back, it's supposed to be blank. When I came back from that trip, I spent more time at home, and my mom convinced me to Hélène, just please ask for a chest X-ray. Please, just if the bare minimum, just please do that. And so I went in, I got a chest X-ray, and a couple days later, I got a phone call, because this is what the lungs of a 20-year-old should have looked like, and this is what mine looked like. And I smoked, I had no idea what was going on. It took us months to figure out what the issue was. In fact, we didn't get a diagnosis till after the lungs were outside of my body. But we did know that I had a 26% lung function left, that I was losing lung function quickly. And the only way to treat what I had was with a double lung transplant. You can imagine, I was not expecting that at all. I got a call saying, Hélène, you need to come to the hospital right now. We're looking at your chest X-ray. Your lungs have collapsed. I was like, my lungs have collapsed? I know why. They collapsed. It's not how it works. I had a huge learning curve in all of this, and it turned out I had this rare lung disease called pluriparenchymal fibroelastosis. It took me a while to learn how to say that. Essentially, your lungs are kind of like the sponges, and the inflammation that was happening then turned into scarring, which then hardened my lungs. And so I was losing, the fibrosis was kind of inflaming the outside of the pleura, so the outside of my lungs. And then once it just started a chain reaction that just couldn't stop. And my life got flipped, turned upside down. This idea that I had of traveling and being in film and all those things, all of a sudden just slipped away. We live in Ottawa, and unfortunately, they don't perform lung transplants in Ottawa, but they do perform them in Toronto. And when they told me that I would need a double lung transplant, I thought to myself, this is a really crappy situation. But I remembered my grade 8 teacher told me, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to what happens to you. And if I were to pout and be miserable, it wasn't going to change the fact that I had bad lungs and that I was going to need new ones. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be positive. So my nurses and I, we were like air supply. My dad called me YouTube. I said if I was a rapper, I'd be Lil Weezy. And it was an adjustment. It was an adjustment. My dad called me YouTube. And I think people tend to forget that when something like this happens, it doesn't just affect the patient, it affects the entire family. The entire unit is affected. And the need for this lung transplant, there was a need to relocate. It meant that my mom would take a leave of absence without pay and move to Toronto with me. and my dad would take a leave of absence and stay with my siblings in Ottawa. And that was really hard. Also, the cost of relocating and then potentially moving to a city and never coming back home again was the reality that we were facing. And it was challenging, financially, emotionally, physically, really exhausting. And along came this gentleman named Tabor. Tabor attended a church service where someone donated a ton of money, and everybody who was in the audience was given $100 to pay it forward. And Tabor was one of the individuals who received $100 and didn't know what he wanted to do with the money that he was given. Later on that evening, they got an email about a prayer chain about Hélène Campbell, and he thought, you know what? I think I'm going to use that money to build a website for their family to raise funds for relocation, because GoFundMe wasn't really a thing yet. And he really wanted to pay it forward and help us in some way. So when he called me and reached out to me asking if he could create this website, I felt really uncomfortable with it for a couple reasons. First things first, I thought that I would move to Toronto, like get a job at Starbucks or something while I was waiting. They'd give me new lungs and I'd come home and that would be that. No one would know. That's not what happened at all. The other thing is, it was hard to be vulnerable and it was hard to be, I guess, transparent about everything that was happening and the reality of it. I hate having to tell people bad news. And I remember walking into a Tim Hortons one day with my oxygen, running into someone and them saying, Hélène, what? Why are you on oxygen? And I said, oh, it's a bit of a long story. And I love puns. And so when Tabor told me, can we make a website? You know, is it okay if we do this? I said, okay. And he said, what do you want the name of it to be? And I was like, a long story just seems right to me. And so he's the one who told me, Hélène, I think you should get Twitter so that you can just do little tweet updates on your website so that everybody will know what's going on with your health. It was much easier to blog and just do little updates like that than to call and speak with everybody about what was going on. It was also easier to be transparent and share the story that way. There was a fundraiser that happened as a result of this website. This website was put up and it got shared and it was trending around the world because all those individuals who had seen me dance in Spain and Barcelona couldn't believe that I was now needing to relocate to Toronto 4 months later for a lung transplant. And the thing is, life can change in an instant, guys. We don't know how many breaths we have left. Everything is just uncertain. And I learned that the hard way. And I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I remember when the fundraiser happened, the members of our community came together and my employer at Dairy Queen said, we are going to match any donation that are made in store today for your family. And the individuals who were organizing the fundraiser found that out and told everybody, hey, you were planning on coming to the fundraiser, go to Dairy Queen and give them money. And they got over, I think, $8,000 of donations in that day, which was incredible. And that was really a community and the support of all these people coming together. And there was an individual who read the story and read about this fundraiser and what Dairy Queen did and what the community had done. And he came over and he wanted to interview my mom and I. And when he was interviewing us, he asked my mom, Manon, as a nurse, what is it like to see your daughter go through something like this? And my mom's answer was, we hope that through her story, we can also bring awareness to the importance of organ and tissue donation. And when she said that, this light bulb went off. This idea that, okay, this is so much bigger than me, and there is a purpose in this now, and my purpose is going to be to raise awareness for organ donation. And this website, A Lung Story, is going to be a hub to raise awareness for organ and tissue donation. And then I started thinking, I wonder if we got Justin Bieber to tweet about organ donation, how many people would feel influenced to register or even just talk about organ donation? So I called my friend Kelly and I said, Kelly, I have an idea. And 10 minutes later, she was at my parents' place and we were filming a video which essentially was like a call to action. I was asking people to join me in this Twitter adventure to try and get the Biebs to retweet to get Be an Organ Donor trending, which is a little wacky tobacco. But you know what? We said, why don't we try this? So we made a video, call to action, saying, everybody, January 19th, the day that the Campbell family / Hélène and her mom are relocating to Toronto, we're going to tweet to the Biebs. I had 4 hours of just being on Twitter, and I was like, we're going to try and get this trending. We're going to try and get organ and tissue donation awareness out there. And little did we know that just attaching Justin Bieber's name to be an organ donor would actually increase registration by 326 people in that day. And Justin Bieber didn't retweet. And Trillium Gift of Life called me the next day to say, Hélène, I know he didn't tweet, but we had 326 people register for organ donation. That's an increase in 500%. And for us, my mom and I, we were like, you know what? That's amazing. Even if just one person had done it, that would have been incredible. Then the next morning, I woke up and my phone had blown up. And the first thing was like, you did it. He did it. The Biebs heard our message. And so he responded. And I was like, I believe you should use that Canadian voice and help save lives like mine. And we never thought that he would actually do it. And he did. And organ donation and tissue donation, it just went up. Registration went through the roof. My friend Kelly and I, we were like, okay, we got the Biebs. Who's next? So this is what we did next. I'm just going to play this for you guys.
As you know, we get tons of letters and emails and videos every single day. And when I saw this next video that came in, I knew I wanted to meet this young woman. Let's watch her.
My name is Hélène Campbell. I'm a huge fan, and I'm 20 years old. I'm currently living in Toronto, and I am waiting for a call from the transplant team for a double lung transplant. It's kind of weird because I've left Ottawa and I've left home, and it could be a really negative situation, but I'm trying to stay positive in this. My best way to do it has been so far to help raise awareness for organ donation and giving blood. My goal is for you to watch this video and to really be inspired to help out with this cause. You have such a credible voice and you like to touch causes that people don't like to talk about. In January, a bunch of friends and I rallied together and thought, why don't we try and tweet to Justin Bieber and get him to help us raise awareness for organ donation? And he did. And over 2,000 people in Ontario alone signed up and registered to be organ donors. And I keep thinking, if that was only done by a tweet, imagine if you could speak about for 2 minutes how many people would feel influenced to register and give the gift of life. It's not just about lungs, there's so many other things out there. One person decides to donate their organs, that's saving 8 lives. That's giving 8 people a chance of living longer and happier and with their loved ones. Lots of people don't know about, they're not even aware, or they're aware but they just aren't sure. Why not give someone else a second chance? Why not let them have the chance to dance again or, like go up the stairs without feeling sick? It's so amazing that you can give the gift of life after we've passed and give someone like me a second chance. Like, I love dancing like you do, and without getting a lung transplant, I won't be able to do it anymore.
So that is Aileen. She can't travel right now, and I thought we would surprise her via Skype. She thinks that she's waiting to Skype with a producer. She can't see me, and that is her waiting. And so let's surprise her and show her who she's going to Skype with right now. Hi! Surprise! Hi, Aileen! I know this is kind of a shock, and now I'm going to ask you to just talk normally, but
Can you turn up my oxygen?
yeah, please turn up her oxygen right now.
Wow, right? Incredible. Never thought that something like the idea of just tweeting to the Beebs and making this video would actually ever happen. And it's funny, in my yearbook I wrote, "You'll see me on Ellen someday." Didn't know how or why. I just felt like that was going to happen. And it did happen. And our family ended up going out and dancing with her. And it was really incredible. But the disease I had was pretty aggressive, and it was moving quickly, and time was running out. And we know this story ends well because I'm here, but that's not the case for everybody. And unfortunately, 1 of 3 passes away waiting for an organ. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that way. And yes, as my lungs, physical lungs, were failing, the support that I was getting to help me breathe easier through that process was only growing and growing and growing. And I had thousands of people supporting me, sending encouraging messages, and it was still so hard. So I can't imagine people who are going through that, who don't have the support that we had, facing this, the unknown, the uncertainty of, will I get it? Every time your phone rings, is it the call? Just imagining and feeling those emotions and facing mortality and realizing, oh my goodness, this might be it for me. It was a hard and tough pill to swallow. But like I said, we know it ends well. And on April 6th, which was a Good Friday, I received my first double lung transplant. My lungs were actually put on that ex vivo perfusion machine that Alex was talking about. The donor lungs were far too big for my chest cavity, and they had a choice, either to transplant these lungs into someone who had a good tissue typing and the same size, but they had much more time left than I did, or should we transplant these lungs into Hélène? And what they ended up doing is they chose me, and they put these lungs on the ex vivo perfusion, performed a lobotomy, and gave me lobes of the lungs. So I didn't get full lungs, but I received lobes and was able to continue with life because of this incredible technology and this innovation with this ex vivo machine. Because performing the surgery on that machine, there was a lot less risk for bleeding, a lot less risk for infection. They flush them with an antibiotic solution to go through, and it's just really remarkable what they're able to do. And so this is a photo that was taken right before I was wheeled into the OR. And I remember telling my mom, you know, whether I make it or I don't, I'll be in a better place. And I really did mean it. And I'm so fortunate to be here, but the recovery was hard. The lungs had to heal. And I think a lot of people have this idea that receiving a transplant, it's this perfect cure, but it really isn't. It's more of a treatment. And there are all these tests and things that you will face forever, you'll deal with forever. And the transplant team tells you this. You know, this isn't a cure, it is a treatment, and you have to see it that way. But the treatment and the alternative, of dying, it's worth it. And unfortunately, when I was told I would need a double lung transplant, the stats, there wasn't a lot of information about transplantation, about lung transplants, and a lot of the longevity post-transplant was 2 to 5 years. And hearing that, it's scary to go through all of that and know that. But now that we have these infrastructures and database collection to have more information, we can have a better representation of, you know, accurate numbers, and people might not feel as discouraged or on the fence of going through something like this the same way that someone might. And that in itself is really remarkable. And since then, I have been able to experience so many incredible things. Both of my sisters have been married. I got to do the CN Tower Edge Walk. I got to go to Holland. They named a street after me, but that street, we look at it as a reminder of people coming together. The story of organ donation itself, it's beyond just one individual. It requires so many moving parts for it to happen. And my story also had so many moving parts for it to get to where it was. And so we look at that street and it's a reminder of there's unity in community. There's something about people being connected. And just kidding, it's part of the presentation. Sometimes you're going about and you think you have everything figured out and life is going a certain way and an unexpected error occurs. In that case, I was in rejection. So I celebrated my 5-year lung anniversary, and a couple weeks later, I moved to Toronto to get listed for another double lung transplant. And we decided to keep that second journey private for ourselves because it was really difficult to go through it publicly. It was hard. We don't regret that we did it. There's no regret there whatsoever. In fact, if I had to do it again, I would. But going through a second lung transplant and feeling that vulnerability, I think for mental health reasons, I really needed to just keep that between us. And so in September of 2017, I received my second double lung transplant, which is why I call myself a double-double. And people hear that and they're like, wow, that's amazing. There are so many individuals out there who are double-doubles. It's not uncommon for people to actually receive a second lung transplant. And so that's the reality that's out there. Since my second lung transplant, I have been able to, acquire a dog, little tater tot, Théophile, and I've also been able to meet my nephew, my 2 brother-in-laws, and every breath that I take now is just a reminder of the fragility of life, but also how fortunate we are to be here. And there's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that I really, really love. It's when I was working at a summer camp when I was younger, a young girl came up to me and gave me a bookmark that had this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson on it. And I'm going to show it to you. And it's funny how things are so pertinent to you in your life. This isn't the entire quote because it is quite long, but I kind of summarized little pieces of it. And it's to laugh often and much, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, to know even one life has breathed easier because you've lived. This is to have succeeded. The impact of that quote and what it means for me and what it should mean for all of you. I think we're so caught up in materialistic things and the status of this and how things appear, but that's not what it's about. It's about so much more than that. And in the work you're doing, you are essentially hoping to alleviate people from suffering. You're hoping to prolong life, and you're hoping to help others. And knowing other people are breathing easier because of the work you're doing is something to remember and to be proud of. And so I just want to thank you all for the incredible work that you do for many, many people, and that it encourages you to want to keep going and want to focus and really think about, what is the purpose in this and who are we helping? And I just want to thank you again for that. So I have a little video to play, and then I'll just put that up there. Thank you so much for your time.